They say family gatherings can be awkward, but nobody prepared me for the moment. My mom handed me a server's apron at my sister's birthday party and said, "Be a dear and help out." What happened next would make me rethink my entire family dynamic. What followed was the most expensive unpaid internship of my life, complete with fancy guests treating me like staff and my own relatives pretending not to know me. By the end of the night, I had served dozens of strangers and received zero acknowledgement from my actual family members. But let me start from the beginning, when I was still naive enough to think this invitation meant they actually wanted me there. The mansion that money built and common sense forgot. The GPS guided me down winding country roads toward what my family had described as a charming lakeside venue for my sister's 25th birthday celebration. Charming turned out to be real estate code for mortgage your soul. The property emerged from behind towering oak trees like something ripped from Architectural Digest. 3 stories of pristine white stone stretched across perfectly maintained grounds. Floor-to-ceiling windows reflected the afternoon sun so brilliantly, I needed sunglasses just to look at the place. A circular driveway curved around a fountain that belonged in a European palace. Water cascaded from 3 marble tiers, while carved cherubs smiled down at the parade of luxury vehicles below. My 15-year-old Honda Civic looked criminally out of place among the Tesla Model S sedans and BMW SUVs lined up like expensive jewelry in a display case. I parked near the edge of the gravel, trying to make my car invisible behind a pristine Range Rover. The contrast felt intentional somehow. My modest gift bag containing a handmade photo album suddenly seemed pathetic next to whatever treasures these people had brought for the birthday princess. The mansion's entrance featured double doors tall enough for a cathedral. Marble columns flanked the entryway, supporting a balcony where someone had draped silk banners reading "Happy Birthday, Madison" in gold cursive lettering. Fresh white roses cascaded from enormous urns positioned every few feet along the walkway. Everything screamed money, and lots of it. Guests wandered the grounds holding crystal champagne flutes and speaking in those carefully modulated voices wealthy people use at social gatherings. Women in designer dresses picked their way across the grass on stiletto heels, while men in tailored blazers discussed golf handicaps and stock portfolios. Nobody seemed concerned about grass stains or practical footwear. These people existed in a world where other humans handled such mundane worries. I recognized some faces from previous family events, but most guests remained strangers to me. They moved through the space with practiced ease born from attending countless similar gatherings. Everything about their posture and conversation suggested this level of luxury felt normal to them. The way they casually ignored the stunning surroundings told me more about their financial status than any designer label could. Inside the mansion, marble floors stretched in every direction, reflecting light from crystal chandeliers that belonged in European palaces. The main living area could have housed my entire apartment twice over. Professional florists had transformed the space into something resembling a high-end wedding venue. White orchids and pale pink peonies filled every corner, creating an almost overwhelming floral perfume that mixed with expensive cologne and champagne. My sister Madison held court in the center of the main room wearing a flowing white dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent. She laughed at something one of her friends whispered while accepting air kisses from arriving guests. Her blonde hair had been professionally styled into perfect waves that caught the light just right. Even her makeup looked like the work of expensive professionals. Everything about her appearance screamed special occasion and unlimited budget. The supporting cast of family members orbited around Madison like planets around the sun. My mother, Linda, wore a navy blue cocktail dress with pearl accessories that I had never seen before. Her jewelry sparkled under the chandelier light, suggesting recent shopping trips to places I could never afford. My father stood near the bar area, wearing a suit that actually fit him properly for once. Even he looked more polished than usual, as if the mansion's atmosphere demanded elevated presentation from everyone present. Catering staff glided through the crowd, carrying silver trays loaded with elaborate appetizers. They wore crisp white uniforms and moved with professional precision honed from working countless upscale events. Their seamless service made the whole operation look effortless, even though coordinating this level of hospitality required serious skill and experience. These people knew their business. The millennium guest list represented exactly the kind of social climbing crowd I expected my family to cultivate. Conversations centered around vacation homes in Aspen, charitable galas, and private school admissions. Someone mentioned their new yacht, while another guest discussed hiring additional household staff. The casual way they dropped these details suggested money was never a consideration for any decision they made. I stood near the entrance, clutching my simple gift bag and feeling increasingly aware of my department store dress and Target accessories. The contrast between my preparation and everyone else's professional styling became impossible to ignore. While other guests had clearly spent hours and hundreds of dollars getting ready, I had managed 20 minutes in my bathroom mirror using drugstore cosmetics. Standing there, surrounded by all this calculated perfection, I couldn't help thinking about our childhood birthday parties. Madison and I used to celebrate with homemade cake in our cramped kitchen while Mom hung streamers from the ceiling fan. We'd play pin the tail on the donkey and fight over who got the corner piece with extra frosting. Those parties cost maybe $30 total, but somehow felt more genuine than this elaborate performance. The mansion itself told a story about priorities and values that made me uncomfortable. Renting a place this elaborate for a single birthday party suggested money meant nothing to my family when it came to impressing their social circle. The expense involved in this celebration could have covered years of practical gifts or meaningful family experiences. Instead, every dollar had gone toward creating Instagram-worthy moments and showing off to people who probably forgot about the party within a week. Professional photographers moved through the crowd, capturing candid moments and posed group shots. Their expensive cameras clicked, constantly documenting every detail of the perfect celebration. The lighting setup they had installed suggested these images would appear on social media within hours, showcasing my family's wealth and social connections to hundreds of online followers. The whole scene felt like performance art designed to communicate status rather than celebrate actual family bonds. Every detail, from the flower arrangements to the catered menu, had been chosen for maximum visual impact and social media potential. The birthday girl herself seemed less important than the impression the party would make on guests and online audiences. But none of that mattered the moment Mom showed up at my side. Her smile looked practiced and cold as she extended something black and white toward me without any explanation or apology. The fabric felt rough against my fingers as I unfolded what turned out to be a server's apron complete with staff, printed across the front in bold white letters. The apron incident, or how I became Cinderella without the fairy godmother. My brain needed several seconds to process what had just happened. The black fabric in my hands felt coarse and foreign, like something that belonged to someone else's life. The white letters spelling staff across the front seemed to burn into my retinas. I stared at the apron, wondering if this was some elaborate joke or maybe a case of mistaken identity. Maybe my mother had confused me with actual hired help. Maybe she had suffered a medical episode that affected her ability to recognize her own daughter. But the expectant look on her face told me everything I needed to know. This was intentional, calculated. She stood there waiting for me to tie the strings around my waist like it was the most natural request in the world. Her smile never wavered from that practiced social expression she wore at church functions and charity galas. The same smile she used when asking people to volunteer for committees they never wanted to join. "We're short-staffed and need extra hands," she said in that breezy tone reserved for discussing weather patterns or grocery lists. She gestured toward the kitchen where actual professional servers moved between stainless steel prep stations. Their white uniforms looked crisp and expensive. Their movements suggested years of training in hospitality service. They looked like they belonged in this marble cathedral of wealth. I did not. The weight of the moment settled over me like a heavy blanket soaked in ice water. My sister's birthday party was happening around me in full swing. Champagne glasses clinked together in celebration. Laughter bubbled up from clusters of designer-dressed guests. Madison herself held court near the massive fireplace, accepting compliments on her flowing white dress and professionally styled hair. Everyone seemed to glow under the crystal chandelier light like they were posing for a lifestyle magazine spread. And there I stood, holding a server's apron like some kind of consolation prize for showing up to my own family gathering. My hands shook slightly as I tied the apron strings around my waist. The fabric hung awkwardly over my department store dress, making me look like someone playing dress up in the wrong costume. The other servers wore matching uniforms that fit properly and suggested professional competence. My outfit screamed amateur volunteer pressed into emergency service. At least when Mom made me wash dishes as a kid, I got to stay in the kitchen where nobody could see my humiliation. A woman in a champagne-colored cocktail dress approached me holding an empty glass. Her diamond earrings caught the light as she tilted her head expectantly. "Excuse me, could I get another Prosecco?" she asked without making eye contact. Her tone suggested she was accustomed to being served by people who existed solely for her convenience. She didn't wait for my response before moving on to continue her conversation about vacation homes in Martha's Vineyard. The realization hit me like a physical blow. She hadn't recognized me as Madison's sister. She saw the apron and immediately categorized me as hired help, someone to fetch drinks and clear plates, someone whose name didn't matter because our interaction would last exactly long enough for her to state her beverage preference. I looked around the room searching for any family member who might acknowledge the obvious absurdity of this situation. My father stood near the bar area discussing golf handicaps with other men in expensive suits. He glanced in my direction once, but his eyes slid past me like I was part of the furniture. My cousins clustered together near the massive windows overlooking the lake, taking selfies and giggling about something on someone's phone. None of them seemed to find anything unusual about seeing their relative transformed into unpaid service staff. Madison herself remained the center of attention, accepting air kisses and compliments from her carefully curated guest list. Her laugh carried across the room, bright and musical like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. She looked radiant and happy, surrounded by people who clearly adored her or at least performed adoration convincingly well. The birthday princess in her element, commanding attention and admiration from her loyal subjects. I wondered if she had been part of planning this little role assignment or if my mother had handled the details independently. Did Madison know her sister would be serving drinks to her friends? Did she care? The questions bounced around my head while I tried to figure out basic tray-carrying techniques without dropping expensive glassware onto marble floors. The professional servers made it look effortless. They balanced multiple champagne flutes while navigating through crowds of people without spilling a single drop. They knew which guests wanted their glasses refilled before being asked. They anticipated needs and fulfilled them before anyone noticed they had needs to fulfill. Years of training and experience showed in every smooth movement. I bumped into a marble column while attempting to deliver sparkling water to a group discussing their children's private school admissions. The glasses rattled against each other, creating an embarrassing musical announcement of my inexperience. Several guests turned to look at me with expressions ranging from mild annoyance to amused condescension. The kind of looks people give when the help makes mistakes that disrupt their carefully orchestrated social experience. "Careful there," one man said with a patronizing chuckle. "These floors can be tricky in those shoes." He gestured toward my sensible flats with the kind of smile adults use when speaking to clumsy children. His wife nodded sympathetically, as if witnessing some kind of minor natural disaster. Neither of them recognized me as a family member, despite having attended previous family gatherings where I had been introduced as Madison's sister. The apron had erased my identity completely. The moment I tied those strings around my waist, I had transformed from family member to anonymous service provider. My relationship to the birthday girl became irrelevant. My presence at previous family events meant nothing. The only thing that mattered was my ability to keep their glasses filled and their appetizer plates properly stocked. Standing there in that magnificent mansion, surrounded by wealth and privilege, I finally understood my true position in this family hierarchy. I wasn't Madison's sister attending her birthday celebration. I was free labor disguised as family obligation. The realization should have been crushing, but instead I felt something unexpected. Clarity. The performance had finally dropped its mask and revealed the truth underneath. And this wasn't just a one-off humiliation. Something told me the evening held more surprises in store. So I decided to play along and document every ridiculous moment of what promised to be the most expensive unpaid internship of my life. Starting with getting a closer look at the guest of honor herself. Meet the birthday princess and her court of enablers. Madison floated through the marble foyer like she owned not just the mansion, but the entire lake surrounding it. Her flowing white dress caught every beam of light filtering through the crystal chandeliers, while her blonde hair cascaded in loose curls that looked effortless but screamed expensive salon treatment. The professional styling extended to her flawless makeup with perfectly contoured cheekbones and lips that matched her nail polish exactly. She wore a delicate tiara that caught the light with every turn of her head. Not the plastic birthday crown from a party store, but actual crystal and silver that probably cost more than my monthly car payment. The way she carried herself suggested she felt entirely comfortable wearing a crown in public like it was just another accessory. Standing there in my server's apron, I couldn't help thinking she looked like some kind of lake house queen while I had been demoted to apron peasant status. Guests orbited around Madison like planets around the sun, drawn by some invisible gravitational force that made her the natural center of every conversation. Women in designer cocktail dresses leaned in to compliment her dress, her hair, her jewelry, her choice of venue. Men in expensive suits smiled indulgently while their wives gushed about the party planning and attention to detail. Everyone spoke to her in those carefully modulated tones people use when addressing someone they consider important or influential. Madison, darling, this is absolutely spectacular. Cooed a woman wearing enough diamonds to fund a small country's education budget. You have such exquisite taste in everything. Madison accepted the compliment with a gracious smile that suggested she heard similar praise regularly and expected nothing less. Her responses carried that practiced humility that wealthy people perfect for social gatherings where appearing grateful is part of maintaining their image. Mom orchestrated every compliment Madison received like a stage manager, ensuring her daughter's experience met impossibly high standards. She hovered nearby, whispering instructions to catering staff about Madison's beverage preferences and adjusting already perfect flower arrangements. Her movements suggested years of practice orchestrating events designed to showcase Madison's supposed sophistication and social connections. The family had developed intricate rituals around Madison's birthday celebrations that bordered on religious ceremony. Dad stood ready with his expensive camera capturing every interaction, every smile, every perfectly timed laugh. He moved through the crowd like a professional photographer hired specifically to document Madison's radiant personality and magnetic charm. His focus never wavered from his daughter, as if missing a single moment might somehow diminish the historical record of her special day. Cousins and extended family members clustered around Madison, sharing stories and inside jokes that reinforced their special bond with the birthday princess. They spoke in animated voices about shared memories, vacation trips, and future plans that somehow always centered on Madison's interests and preferences. Their conversations flowed naturally around topics that highlighted her achievements, her opinions, her future aspirations, while other family members remained peripheral to these intimate discussions. Madison's voice carried across the room with musical quality that drew attention even during casual conversations. She laughed at exactly the right moments and paused dramatically before delivering punchlines that sent her audience into appreciative giggles. Her timing suggested someone accustomed to holding court and managing group dynamics to maintain her position as the primary entertainment. Every story she told somehow cast her as the clever protagonist who navigated challenges with grace and wit. I watched from my position near the kitchen entrance, balancing a tray of champagne glasses while trying to blend into the background with the other service staff. Madison glanced in my direction several times during the evening, but her eyes seemed to slide past me without recognition or acknowledgement. The apron had apparently rendered me invisible to her just as effectively as it had to the other guests. My presence registered only as part of the anonymous labor force, keeping her celebration running smoothly. During one particularly revealing moment, Madison gestured toward the catering station where I was refilling water glasses and made a comment to her friends about the quality of service at upscale events. "Good help really does make all the difference," she said with the authority of someone who had attended countless similar gatherings. "You can always tell when event planners cut corners on staffing." Her friends nodded knowingly as if they too possessed expertise in evaluating professional service standards. The conversation continued with Madison explaining her philosophy about hiring reliable vendors and the importance of proper staff training for successful entertaining. She spoke with confidence about managing household employees and maintaining service standards that reflected well on the host family. Her friends listened attentively, as if receiving valuable advice from someone with extensive experience managing domestic staff. None of them seemed to find anything unusual about a 25-year-old discussing employee management with such authority. Madison's birthday traditions included elaborate gift-opening ceremonies where she sat in a designated chair while family members presented their offerings one by one. Each gift received careful examination and thoughtful commentary about the giver's excellent taste and understanding of her preferences. She exclaimed over jewelry accessories, clothing items, and gift certificates to expensive spa treatments with exactly the right level of enthusiasm to make each presenter feel appreciated and validated. When Madison opened my carefully chosen photo album filled with family memories from our childhood, her response felt notably restrained compared to her previous enthusiasm. She flipped through the pages quickly with polite comments about the thoughtful presentation while her audience waited for more animated reactions. The album disappeared into the growing pile of gifts without further discussion or the detailed appreciation she had shown for more expensive presents. Later that evening, when family members began gathering for the traditional group photograph, Madison positioned herself prominently in the center of the arrangement. She directed the photographer about lighting angles and suggested pose adjustments to ensure the most flattering composition. The photographer asked about including all family members present for the celebration. Madison glanced toward the kitchen area where I was clearing dessert plates and shrugged with practiced indifference. "This looks perfect as is," she replied smoothly. "We want to keep it intimate with just the core family group." Her casual dismissal carried no malice or deliberate cruelty, just the automatic exclusion of someone who had never been considered part of her inner circle. Standing there holding dirty plates while watching my family pose for their perfect memory, I started noticing something else entirely. The real catering staff
professional
moved
server
through this
versus
chaos with an
the
ease
family
I
servant, guess who
definitely
gets
didn't
paid.
possess. Watching them work made my own fumbling attempts look even more pathetic. The professional catering staff moved through the mansion with smooth efficiency in their crisp white uniforms while I shuffled around in my makeshift server costume consisting of a scratchy black apron over my department store dress. The contrast between their polished presentation and my amateur hour appearance became impossible to ignore. The real servers received polite nods and thank you comments from guests who treated them with basic human courtesy. Wealthy people in designer cocktail dresses smiled when accepting champagne refills and actually made eye contact during brief interactions. They understood these professionals were providing a paid service and responded accordingly with the minimal respect required for transactional relationships. But guests looked right through me like I was part of the marble architecture. The apron had transformed me into background furniture that happened to carry beverages and clear empty plates. When I approached groups holding my tray of sparkling water, they continued their conversations about vacation homes without acknowledging my existence. They grabbed glasses from my tray without breaking eye contact with their conversation partners. A woman in a champagne-colored dress treated me like automated beverage dispensing equipment. She held out her empty glass, expecting immediate replacement without bothering to look at my face or offer basic courtesy. Her tone suggested she was accustomed to being served by people who existed solely for her convenience. She would never have treated the professional servers with such casual dismissal because she understood they were paid employees deserving minimal respect. The real catering staff noticed my obvious inexperience and awkward attempts to master basic serving techniques. During one particularly disastrous moment, I nearly dumped an entire tray of champagne onto a man discussing his art collection. The glasses rattled dangerously as I overcorrected my balance, sending liquid sloshing toward the rim of every flute. He stepped back with alarm while I managed to steady the tray at the last second, my face burning with embarrassment. During a brief moment in the kitchen, one of the professional servers approached me with genuine confusion written across her face. She had been watching my amateur performance and trying to figure out which catering company had sent such an obviously untrained employee to work this upscale event. "Are you new to catering work?" she asked quietly while we both refilled our trays near the kitchen island. Her question carried no judgment, just practical concern about maintaining service standards. When I explained that I was actually Madison's sister who had been recruited as emergency help, her expression shifted to something approaching horror. The family dynamics she was witnessing suddenly made sense, but clearly violated every professional boundary she understood. She glanced around the kitchen to make sure nobody else was listening before offering some quick advice about tray carrying techniques and guest interaction protocols. Her whispered coaching session felt more supportive than anything my actual family had provided since I arrived at this marble palace. Standing there receiving genuine care from a complete stranger hit me harder than expected. This woman who had known me for 30 minutes showed more concern for my comfort and success than the people who shared my DNA and childhood memories. The realization settled in my chest like a cold weight. The professional servers seemed well supported by their employer throughout the evening. They worked hard, but within reasonable limits that maintained service quality and protected their well-being. Their supervisor checked on their progress and provided clear guidance about responsibilities and performance expectations. Nobody offered me breaks or asked about my physical comfort during the endless hours of standing and walking across marble floors in inadequate shoes. My family apparently assumed I possessed superhuman endurance, or perhaps they simply didn't care whether I needed rest or refreshment. My mother provided no guidance about my supposed serving duties beyond the initial apron presentation and vague instruction to be helpful. The real servers earned their paychecks through professional competence and reliable service that justified the catering company's rates. Guests understood they were paying for skilled labor and expected quality results from trained professionals. The financial transaction created clear boundaries and mutual obligations that protected both parties from exploitation. I provided identical labor without any compensation beyond the privilege of attending my sister's birthday celebration as unpaid help. My family had somehow convinced themselves that asking me to work for free represented a reasonable request rather than obvious exploitation. They expected professional quality service from someone with no training experience or payment, while treating the actual professionals with more respect and consideration than they showed their own daughter. The professional catering staff would pack up their equipment, collect their paychecks, and return to their own lives once the event concluded. They could take pride in jobs well done and compensation earned through honest work. Their relationship with my family ended when the last glass was cleared and the final payment was processed. But I would carry the emotional weight of this experience long after the marble floors were cleaned and the rental contract expired. The professionals could forget about Madison's birthday party within days because it represented just another successful catering job. For me, this evening would remain a permanent reminder of exactly how my family valued my presence in their carefully orchestrated social performances. A guest approached me near the end of the evening, holding an empty champagne flute and speaking in that tone people use when addressing hired help. "Excuse me, could you bring some napkins to our table?" she asked without waiting for my response before turning back to continue her conversation about charitable foundation boards. She never bothered to learn my name or acknowledge any connection to the birthday girl whose celebration she was attending. But she wasn't the only one treating me like invisible staff. The entire guest list seemed perfectly comfortable with this arrangement, which made me wonder exactly what kind of people my family had invited to witness this performance. The guest list from hell, rich people behaving badly. The guest list read like a who's who of people desperately trying to convince everyone they belonged in magazines about successful living. Women in cocktail dresses that cost more than most people's monthly salaries glided across the marble floors, discussing their latest home renovations and charity board appointments. Their jewelry caught the chandelier light with every gesture, creating sparkles that seemed calculated for maximum visual impact. These were people who measured their worth in designer labels and social media followers rather than genuine accomplishments or meaningful relationships. Men in perfectly tailored suits clustered around the bar area, comparing golf handicaps and investment portfolios with the casual arrogance of people who had never worried about mortgage payments or grocery budgets. They spoke in the kind of code language wealthy people use to signal their status without appearing vulgar enough to mention actual dollar amounts. The social climbing energy in the room was almost visible. Guests circulated through the mansion like they were working a networking event designed to advance their position in some invisible hierarchy. They dropped names of exclusive country clubs and casually referenced their children's acceptance to prestigious private schools. Who even talks about landscape architects at a birthday party? But here they were discussing the exhausting process of interviewing vendors for backyard renovation projects that would photograph well for lifestyle magazine coverage. A woman wearing enough diamonds to fund a small charitable organization approached my serving station with the confident stride of someone accustomed to having her needs anticipated by hired help. She grabbed a champagne flute from my tray without making eye contact and launched into a detailed monologue about the difficulties of finding reliable housekeeping staff for her summer estate. Her tone suggested she expected sympathy for these challenging domestic management responsibilities that occupied so much of her valuable time and energy. The awkwardness reached peak levels when guests encountered me serving drinks and appetizers throughout the evening. Most of them recognized me from previous family gatherings where I had been introduced as Madison's sister. Their confusion was almost comical as they struggled to reconcile their memories of me as a family member with my current role as unpaid catering assistant. Some of them paused mid-conversation with expressions that suggested their mental processing systems had encountered an error message. A man in an expensive navy blazer stopped dead in his tracks when I offered him a glass of wine. His eyes widened slightly as recognition dawned across his features. He looked from my face to the apron and back again like he was trying to solve a complex puzzle without all the necessary pieces. After several seconds of uncomfortable silence, he accepted the wine with a forced smile and quickly moved away to rejoin his conversation about sailboat maintenance costs. The woman in the champagne-colored dress, who had demanded napkins earlier in the evening, provided the perfect example of wealthy people's selective blindness when confronted with uncomfortable social situations. She had attended multiple family events where Madison introduced me as her sister. We had shared brief conversations about my work and interests during previous gatherings, but the moment she saw me wearing a server's apron, her brain apparently deleted all previous interactions and categorized me as anonymous hired help. Some guests attempted awkward small talk while I refilled their glasses or cleared their empty plates. Their comments carried that strained quality people use when they know something is wrong but lack the courage to address it directly. They made observations about the beautiful weather or complimented the quality of the appetizers while their eyes conveyed confusion about my obvious demotion from family member to service staff. Nobody possessed enough backbone to ask direct questions about the elephant wearing an apron in the room. The unspoken rules of wealthy social gatherings apparently included pretending not to notice when hosts treated their own family members like disposable labor. These people had perfected the art of maintaining polite conversation while ignoring obvious dysfunction happening directly in front of them. Their commitment to social harmony trumped any instinct toward basic human decency or family loyalty. They would rather participate in my humiliation than risk creating awkwardness for themselves or their hosts. One particularly telling moment occurred when a guest asked about my current employment while I was serving or durst to our conversation group. I was about to explain my successful event planning business when my mother materialized beside me with that practiced social smile she wore during damage control situations. She smoothly interrupted the conversation and redirected attention toward Madison's recent achievements and future plans. The other women exchanged those knowing glances that wealthy people use when they witness family drama but agree to pretend they notice nothing unusual. The guests' willingness to enable my family's toxic behavior revealed everything about their own character and values. They cared more about maintaining access to luxury social events than protecting someone from obvious mistreatment. Their silence made them complicit in the emotional abuse they witnessed throughout the evening. These were people who would attend charity galas and discuss the importance of helping others while simultaneously ignoring cruelty happening within their own social circle. A woman discussing her daughter's acceptance to an exclusive boarding school paused her story when I approached with a tray of dessert samples. Her expression shifted from animated pride to confused recognition as she processed seeing Madison's sister serving sweets at a family celebration. She recovered quickly with a tight smile and continued her story. They talked about equestrian programs like it was a quarantine project. The evening reached its pinnacle of absurdity when a guest complained to my mother about the inconsistent service quality from different catering staff members. She specifically mentioned noticing that one server seemed less experienced than the others and suggested future events might benefit from hiring exclusively professional staff. My mother nodded sympathetically and promised to discuss the feedback with the catering company while I stood nearby holding a tray of empty champagne glasses and listening to myself being critiqued like defective rental equipment. These people had transformed willful blindness into an art form. They possessed enough social intelligence to recognize dysfunction but lacked the moral courage to acknowledge what they witnessed. Their priority was maintaining their position within my family's social orbit, regardless of the human cost involved. They would rather participate in someone's humiliation than risk their own comfort or social standing. But the real performance was just getting started. I noticed the professional photographer beginning to set up elaborate lighting equipment near the mansion's main fireplace and realized something big was about to happen. The cake catastrophe, or how I learned I'm allergic to family traditions. The elaborate cake ceremony began with Madison positioning herself in the center of the marble floor, while relatives gathered around her like worshippers at some kind of birthday altar. The 3-tiered cake stood on a crystal pedestal surrounded by matching silver serving pieces that gleamed under the chandelier light. My mother orchestrated the ritual with military precision, directing family members to their designated positions for optimal photographic composition, while the photographer captured every staged moment of preparation. Madison made an elaborate wish with her eyes closed dramatically, creating the perfect photo opportunity that would later appear across social media platforms. The ceremonial first cut brought applause that seemed slightly forced, but photographically appropriate. She delivered witty comments about the cake's beauty that would translate well to social media captions, while family members maintained their frozen smiles and expectant poses. I stood near the kitchen entrance holding dessert plates and watching this performance unfold without any invitation to participate. The contrast felt particularly sharp because I remembered participating in similar ceremonies during childhood birthdays when family traditions included everyone present regardless of their evening assignments. Those memories seemed to belong to a different family or perhaps a different version of myself that had been gradually edited out of current narratives. The family gathered for their traditional group photo session around Madison in carefully planned positions that showcased their coordinated outfits. Everyone had apparently received advance notice about the dress code and photographic expectations, except for the family member wearing a server's apron over department store clothing. When the photographer asked about including all family members present, my mother glanced briefly toward the kitchen area and responded with casual dismissiveness. She explained they preferred keeping formal photos intimate with just the core family group. Her tone carried no malice, just automatic exclusion of someone who had apparently never been considered part of that inner circle. I continued serving cake slices to guests while processing the emotional impact of being systematically excluded from yet another family tradition. The irony became impossible to ignore as I handed out pieces of a cake I would never be invited to share. Guests accepted their desserts with polite thanks while the family continued their photo session just steps away, creating memories that would exist without any evidence of my presence. The cake itself was a masterpiece of professional baking with delicate sugar flowers and intricate frosting work that probably required days of preparation. Each slice revealed layers of gourmet flavors and fillings while guests commented appreciatively about the quality and presentation. I tried to cut uniform portions without damaging the artistic decorations that made each piece Instagram-worthy. My hands moved automatically through the serving motions while my brain struggled to process the deliberate nature of my exclusion from this symbolic family moment. The cake-cutting ceremony represented everything about belonging and celebration that I had been denied throughout the evening. The ritual had deep emotional significance as a marker of family bonds and shared traditions that apparently no longer included me. The professional servers helped distribute cake slices while I remained stationed at the serving area like functional kitchen equipment. Their movements showed practiced efficiency from working countless similar events where they understood their role as invisible facilitators of other people's special moments. That they were paid professionals who would collect wages and return to their own lives once the celebration ended. Family members returned to their conversations after completing the photographic requirements, completely ignoring the obvious dysfunction they had just witnessed and participated in. Their ability to compartmentalize uncomfortable situations showed years of practice maintaining social harmony at the expense of basic human decency. The kitchen area felt like a refuge from the emotional minefield of the main celebration space. I found myself lingering near the commercial refrigerators and stainless steel prep counters where professional equipment created a barrier between my wounded feelings and the ongoing party. The industrial atmosphere provided some psychological distance from the family performance happening in the marble-floored living areas. That's when I discovered something that stopped me cold. Sitting alone on the kitchen counter next to the industrial dishwasher was a single grocery store cupcake, still in its plastic container. The cheap vanilla frosting had started to separate, and the artificial coloring had bled slightly into the cake base. A small paper birthday candle lay beside it like an afterthought. I laughed so hard I almost cried. The contrast between this sad little dessert and the elaborate three-tiered masterpiece in the main room told me everything I needed to know about my true position in this family hierarchy. The cupcake represented my consolation prize for attending my sister's birthday celebration as unpaid labor. Someone had remembered to purchase this pathetic substitute, but couldn't be bothered to present it properly or include me in the actual celebration. The grocery store price tag was still attached, showing the 99-cent cost that summarized my worth in this family's accounting system. I stared at that lonely cupcake sitting there, forgotten, insignificant, and alone, just like me. The accumulated slights and exclusions of the evening crystallized into perfect clarity about my family's true feelings. They had provided me with exactly what they thought I deserved. Little did I know that sad cupcake would be my ticket out. The sounds of laughter and conversation drifted from the main room where the family was apparently preparing for another round of documentation. I could hear my mother's voice directing people into position and the photographer's equipment being adjusted for what sounded like an even more elaborate setup than before. The photo session, where family memories are made and siblings are photoshopped out. The photographer emerged from behind his elaborate lighting setup, clapping his hands together with the enthusiasm of someone about to create artistic magic. Professional umbrellas and reflectors surrounded the main fireplace area, transforming the marble living space into a makeshift studio worthy of a magazine cover shoot. He had spent considerable time adjusting angles and testing exposures, while family members touched up their makeup and smoothed imaginary wrinkles from their designer outfits. Everyone suddenly cared deeply about their appearance now that documentation was imminent. "All right, beautiful family, let's gather around our birthday star," the photographer announced in that cheerful voice professionals use when managing group dynamics. Madison positioned herself in the center, wearing her flowing white dress and crystal tiara like she was posing for a royal portrait. Her smile looked practiced and camera-ready with perfectly applied lipstick that hadn't smudged despite hours of champagne consumption and animated conversation. The chandelier light caught her blonde hair at exactly the right angle, creating that ethereal glow that would translate beautifully to social media platforms. My mother, Linda, began arranging family members around Madison with the precision of a military strategist organizing troops for battle. She adjusted shoulders, turned heads, and repositioned bodies to create the most flattering composition for their carefully curated family image. Dad moved to Madison's right side while cousins filled in the remaining spots according to some invisible hierarchy that determined proximity to the birthday princess. Everyone understood their assigned positions in this orchestrated display of family unity. The family's sudden obsession with photographic perfection bordered on comical. Women who had been casually sipping champagne moments earlier now checked their reflection in every reflective surface within reach, making last-minute adjustments to hair and jewelry. Men straightened ties and smoothed shirts like they were preparing for executive headshots, rather than casual family photos. The transformation from relaxed party guests to professional models happened instantly once cameras appeared. Their social media addiction became obvious through whispered discussions about camera angles and lighting preferences. Someone mentioned posting the photos immediately after the session to maximize engagement during peak online hours. They debated which poses would photograph best for different platforms and discussed caption strategies that would generate the most likes and comments from their followers. The celebration had transformed into content creation designed for digital consumption. I stood near the kitchen entrance, holding a tray of empty champagne glasses and watching this elaborate production unfold without any invitation to participate. The photographer scanned the room looking for additional family members to include in his composition. His professional training told him something seemed incomplete about the group arrangement. He had worked enough family events to recognize when key relatives were missing from important photographs. "Are we missing anyone else?" he asked while adjusting his camera settings. "I want to make sure we capture the complete family for these special memories." His question hung in the air like smoke from an extinguished candle. The family exchanged those quick glances wealthy people use when they need to coordinate their response to unexpected situations. Their momentary silence felt loaded with unspoken communication. My mother's smile never wavered from that practiced expression she wore during damage control situations. She glanced briefly toward the kitchen area where I was stationed with my server's apron and stack of dirty dishes. Her eyes met mine for perhaps half a second before sliding away like oil on water. "This looks perfect as is," she replied smoothly to the photographer. "We prefer keeping these intimate with just our core family group." Her tone carried that breezy authority she used when making decisions that affected other people without consulting them. The photographer began clicking his camera, rapidly capturing multiple shots from different angles while family members held their poses with practiced endurance. Their smiles looked increasingly strained as the session continued, but they maintained their positions like professional models accustomed to lengthy photo shoots. Flash bulbs illuminated their faces in rhythmic bursts, creating dramatic lighting effects that would enhance their social media presence. I watched from my position behind the serving station as my family created visual memories that would exist without any evidence of my presence at the celebration. The irony felt sharp and immediate, like stepping on broken glass in bare feet. I had spent the entire evening serving their guests and facilitating their perfect party, but would be completely erased from the photographic record of the event. It was like they photoshopped me out in real life. The documentation would show a harmonious family gathering without the inconvenient truth of their treatment toward one family member. The photographer suggested several different poses and groupings to provide variety for their social media posts and family albums. He captured candid moments between shots when family members relaxed slightly and showed more genuine expressions. Their laughter seemed authentic during these brief intervals when they forgot about maintaining perfect appearances for the camera. The professional knew how to balance posed portraits with natural moments that would tell a complete visual story. The session concluded with individual shots of Madison surrounded by different combinations of family members. She posed with parents, then cousins, then extended relatives, creating multiple images that would fill her social media feeds for weeks. Each photograph reinforced her position as the family's undisputed star while systematically excluding any evidence of siblings who failed to meet their standards for documentation. Family members dispersed after the final flash with satisfied expressions and immediate discussions about which photos would receive priority posting on various social platforms. They compared camera angles and debated filtering options that would enhance their appearance in the final images. Their excitement about sharing these curated moments revealed the true purpose behind the elaborate photo session. The devastating realization settled over me like a heavy blanket soaked in ice water. This erasure wasn't accidental or oversight caused by the chaos of party planning. The exclusion was deliberate and calculated, designed to create a visual narrative that supported their preferred version of family dynamics. They had made a conscious choice to document their celebration without acknowledging my existence or contribution to its success. The photographer packed his equipment while family members returned to their champagne consumption and guest conversations. Nobody mentioned the obvious gap in their family portraits or questioned the wisdom of excluding a daughter from her sister's birthday documentation. Their ability to compartmentalize uncomfortable situations and continue performing happiness showed years of practice maintaining appearances regardless of underlying dysfunction. I untied my apron strings with hands that shook slightly from accumulated emotion and exhaustion. And just when I thought this was the ultimate erasure, how I quit the real breaking point was still to come. The breaking point arrived with the clarity of a lightning strike illuminating a dark landscape. Standing in that marble kitchen surrounded by industrial equipment and professional catering supplies, I finally understood the truth that had been hiding in plain sight for years. The grocery store cupcake sitting beside me like a consolation prize told me everything I needed to know about my value in this family's carefully constructed hierarchy. I fumbled out of the apron, grabbed my keys, and slipped away while my brain processed the accumulated evidence of systematic exclusion that had defined this entire evening. The fabric had knotted itself during hours of serving, but I managed to work free from my uniform of humiliation. I folded the offensive apron and placed it on the kitchen counter next to the abandoned cupcake, creating a visual statement that nobody would probably notice or understand. My family continued their performance in the main living areas, completely oblivious to my emotional state or growing resolve to escape this toxic situation. The professional catering staff continued their efficient work without missing a beat, proving that my contribution had been entirely unnecessary from the beginning. Nobody seemed to notice or care that their designated server had disappeared from circulation. The exit strategy required avoiding the ongoing photo session near the fireplace, where the family was still posing for individual shots with Madison. Their focus on capturing perfect images provided ideal cover for my quiet departure. I needed to retrieve my purse from the coat closet near the front entrance without drawing attention from guests or family members. The professional servers glanced at me curiously as I moved through the kitchen area without carrying trays or performing obvious work duties. One woman who had tried to help me earlier with serving techniques caught my eye and nodded slightly like she understood something significant was happening. Her expression carried sympathy mixed with professional discretion, suggesting she had witnessed similar family dysfunction during other upscale catering events. My steps felt lighter with each move away from the service area toward the mansion's front entrance. The weight of accumulated resentment and disappointment began lifting from my shoulders as I walked through the marble foyer past clusters of wealthy guests who had treated me like invisible furniture throughout the evening. My heart pounded as I passed the crystal chandelier, knowing I was moments away from freedom. The coat closet yielded my purse and car keys without difficulty, though I half expected some final obstacle to prevent my escape from this emotional prison disguised as a family celebration. My hand shook slightly as I checked for my phone and wallet, confirming I had everything necessary to drive away from people who had never valued my presence. The simple act of reclaiming my personal belongings felt symbolic of reclaiming my dignity and self-respect. The front door opened silently, allowing me to slip outside into the cool evening air without alerting anyone to my departure. The professional photographer was still working with my family, creating their perfect visual memories, while I walked across the gravel driveway toward my modest Honda Civic, parked between luxury SUVs. The contrast between my practical vehicle and their expensive status symbols no longer bothered me because I finally understood that different priorities had created different outcomes. No one even glanced up as I left. The family remained completely absorbed in their photo session and guest entertainment without noticing that their unpaid server had quietly quit the worst job of her life. Their obliviousness to my emotional state and departure confirmed every suspicion I had developed about their capacity for genuine concern or empathy. The car engine started with reassuring reliability while party sounds continued drifting from the mansion's open windows. I sat in the driver's seat for several moments, processing the emotional significance of this departure and the surprising sense of liberation that was replacing my earlier hurt and confusion. Walking away from toxic people felt easier than I had expected once I accepted that their treatment reflected their limitations rather than my worth. The road away from the lake house felt different during my exit drive compared to my anxious arrival hours earlier. Trees that had seemed ominous and foreboding now appeared peaceful and protective, creating a natural barrier between me and the toxic environment I was leaving behind. My death grip on the steering wheel had relaxed into comfortable control as emotional tension drained from my muscles with each mile of distance. The freedom that comes with finally accepting your family's limitations creates space for authentic relationships with people who actually value your presence and contributions. Years of trying to earn their approval and inclusion had prevented me from recognizing that their opinion carried no weight in determining my actual worth or future happiness. The realization felt simultaneously devastating and liberating, like grief and relief arriving at the same moment. The surprisingly liberating moment of walking away from people who never valued my presence marked the end of one chapter and the beginning of something entirely different. I wasn't running away from responsibility or commitment, but toward authentic relationships and genuine self-respect. The grocery store cupcake waiting in that industrial kitchen had accidentally revealed the truth about my position in their hierarchy and provided the clarity necessary to make this long overdue decision. The evening had cost me nothing except illusions about family bonds that had never actually existed. I drove through the winding country roads, feeling lighter than I had in years, finally free from the weight of their expectations and judgments. But as I pulled into my apartment complex, I had no idea that my family's carefully curated celebration was about to become very public in ways they never intended. The social media aftermath, when your family goes viral for all the wrong reasons. The notification alert started buzzing on my phone shortly after I left. My family had apparently wasted no time transforming Madison's birthday celebration into a carefully curated social media campaign designed to showcase their perfect family dynamics and elegant entertaining skills. The first post appeared on my mother's Instagram account, featuring a stunning group photo of the family gathered around Madison near the marble fireplace. Everyone looked radiant and happy, wearing their designer outfits and practiced smiles, while crystal chandeliers provided dramatic lighting that enhanced their photogenic appeal. The caption read like professional marketing copy celebrating Madison's special day and the family's incredible bond that had created such magical memories together. My mother had written several paragraphs about the joy of watching children grow into remarkable adults, surrounded by unconditional love and support from relatives who would always be there through every milestone and celebration. She tagged expensive vendors and thanked the professional photographer for capturing these precious moments that would be treasured forever in family albums and holiday cards. But something was missing from this picture-perfect narrative. Actually, someone was missing. I had been completely erased from the visual record, like a person who had never existed or attended the celebration at all. The professional photographer had captured dozens of images throughout the evening, including candid shots of family members laughing and enjoying themselves during various moments of the party. None of those photos included any evidence of the daughter who had spent hours serving drinks and clearing plates for their wealthy guests. The comments section beneath the family photos provided immediate entertainment as people who knew the real story began responding with barely contained confusion and diplomatic questions about my obvious absence from the documentation. One particularly observant guest who had watched me serve her champagne during the evening left a comment asking about the quality of the catering staff and whether the family had been satisfied with the service provided. Her subtle reference to my forced role as unpaid help flew completely over my family's heads, but provided perfect validation for anyone paying attention to the subtext. She knew exactly what she had witnessed and chose to document it in the most diplomatically devastating way possible. My cousin's wife posted an even more pointed comment praising the beautiful venue and asking specific questions about which family members had been able to participate in the celebration. Her carefully worded inquiry about whether the entire immediate family had gathered for this special occasion created obvious pressure for my mother to explain my absence without admitting to the dysfunction everyone had witnessed. The diplomatic warfare happening in that comment section rivaled anything produced by professional political campaigns. Madison's own social media posts focused exclusively on her stunning appearance and the elaborate party details that showcased her family's wealth and social connections. She shared multiple selfies highlighting her professional makeup and designer dress while thanking everyone who had made her birthday celebration so incredibly special and memorable. Her captions mentioned feeling grateful for family love and support without specifically acknowledging any individual relatives who had contributed to the evening's success. The tension in my chest grew as I scrolled through post after post documenting a family celebration that had somehow occurred without any evidence of my participation or existence. They had managed to create a complete visual narrative of Madison's birthday party while systematically excluding the family member who had worked hardest to ensure their guests remained comfortable and well served throughout the evening. The deliberate nature of this erasure felt more calculated than accidental oversight. That's when I decided to reclaim my story with a single photograph that would reveal the truth behind their carefully constructed facade. I drove back to the grocery store and purchased an identical cupcake to the one that had been left as my consolation prize in the mansion's industrial kitchen. The plastic container and artificial frosting looked exactly as pathetic under fluorescent store lighting as they had surrounded by professional catering equipment and marble countertops. My Instagram post featured a simple image of the sad little cupcake sitting on my kitchen counter next to a handwritten note that read, "Happy birthday to me, love the help." The caption explained my evening in precise detail without naming specific family members or creating unnecessary drama through emotional accusations. I simply documented the facts about being handed a server's apron at my sister's birthday party and discovering my consolation prize hidden in the kitchen while professional catering staff received payment and respect for identical work. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Comments poured in from friends who expressed shock and outrage at my family's treatment while sharing their own stories about toxic relatives and similar experiences with emotional manipulation disguised as family obligations. If you've dealt with similar family dynamics, I'd love to hear your story in the comments below, because these experiences are unfortunately more common than people realize. Several guests who had attended Madison's party and witnessed my forced role as unpaid help left comments confirming the accuracy of my account. They apologized for not speaking up during the celebration and admitted they had felt uncomfortable watching the obvious dysfunction but lacked the courage to intervene on my behalf. Their public acknowledgement of what they had witnessed provided crucial validation and helped establish the truth about my family's behavior. The family's panic became visible through their subsequent social media activity as they scrambled to control the narrative and limit the damage to their carefully maintained public image. My mother posted cryptic messages about the challenges of maintaining family unity when some people choose to walk away from unconditional love and support. Her passive-aggressive comments suggested I had abandoned the family rather than been systematically excluded from their celebration and documentation. Madison shared inspirational quotes about surrounding yourself with positive people who appreciate your worth and refusing to let negative energy diminish your happiness and success. Her posts carried obvious references to recent drama without acknowledging any responsibility for creating the situation that had sparked public accountability and uncomfortable questions about family dynamics. But my favorite response came from an unexpected source. The professional catering supervisor who had worked Madison's party reached out through direct message to apologize for the confusion about my role during the evening and to offer me actual paid employment at future upscale events. She had been impressed with my work ethic and natural hospitality skills, despite the obviously awkward circumstances that had required her professional intervention on several occasions. The social media aftermath revealed something important about the power of authentic storytelling to expose manipulation and reclaim personal narratives from people who prefer maintaining false images over addressing their harmful behavior toward family members. What I didn't expect was how sharing my truth would open doors to opportunities and connections that would completely change my perspective on everything that had happened. Sometimes the most humiliating experiences become the foundation for something much better than you ever imagined possible. The plot twist, when the black sheep becomes the success story. The phone call started 3 weeks after my cupcake post went viral. A series of CYA calls from my mother asking if we could talk about recent misunderstandings and family communication issues. She spoke in that careful tone people use when they're trying to repair damage without actually admitting they caused it. Her messages included vague references to hurt feelings and the importance of maintaining family bonds despite occasional disagreements that get blown out of proportion by social media attention. What my family didn't know was that I had been building something incredible while they were busy excluding me from their designer gatherings in Marble. Mansion celebrations. My event planning business had grown from a side hustle into a six-figure operation specializing in corporate retreats and authentic celebrations for people who value genuine connection over Instagram-worthy photo opportunities. While Madison was posing for professional photographers at rented mansions, I was creating meaningful experiences for clients who became friends and referred their own friends because they trusted my ability to understand what actually mattered. The irony was delicious in the most unexpected way. They had treated me like hired help at Madison's birthday party while I was actually running a more successful business than anything my sister had ever attempted. Her social media influencer career consisted mainly of posting sponsored content about skincare products and designer handbags to an audience of people who probably couldn't afford anything she promoted. My clients paid premium rates for personalized service and creative planning that reflected their values rather than their desire to impress strangers online. The discovery process began when one of my cousins mentioned my business success to my mother during a family dinner I hadn't been invited to attend. Apparently, my event planning work had gained enough local recognition that people in their social circle had started asking about hiring me for their own celebrations. The same wealthy crowd that had watched me serve drinks in a server's apron now wanted to pay me thousands of dollars to coordinate their parties and weddings because they had heard about my reputation for creating unforgettable experiences. Madison reached out through a carefully crafted text message that read like something her social media manager might have written to handle a public relations crisis. She expressed confusion about recent family tension and suggested we should celebrate each other's successes instead of letting misunderstandings create distance between sisters who had always been close. Her message included several heart emojis and references to sisterly love that would have been touching if they hadn't been completely contradicted by years of evidence showing her true feelings about our relationship. The family's attempts to claim credit for my success provided entertainment that rivaled any comedy show I had ever watched. Suddenly, I was their prodigy with no prior evidence. My father suddenly remembered encouraging my entrepreneurial spirit during childhood conversations that had never actually occurred. My mother began telling people that she had always known I would succeed in hospitality because I had such natural talents for making people feel welcome and comfortable. Their revisionist history would have been impressive if it hadn't been so transparently motivated by their desire to associate themselves with my achievements. But the most revealing moment came when my mother suggested I might want to plan Madison's upcoming engagement party as a way to showcase my professional skills to their wealthy social circle. She presented this opportunity like she was offering me a favor rather than recognizing that my services now commanded rates higher than what they had spent on that ridiculous mansion rental. The conversation revealed everything about their inability to see me as anything other than someone who existed to serve their needs and enhance their social status. The twisted logic of their sudden interest in my success highlighted everything wrong with their value system and family priorities. They had spent years treating me like an outsider who didn't deserve inclusion in their celebrations or family photographs. But the moment they discovered I had built something valuable without their help or approval, they wanted to claim ownership of my achievements and benefit from my professional reputation among their social connections. Being the family scapegoat had actually provided valuable life skills that my privileged relatives never developed through their cushioned existence and constant praise. I learned resilience from years of emotional neglect and exclusion. I developed empathy from experiencing rejection and understanding what it felt like to be invisible in rooms full of people. I built authentic relationships with clients and friends who valued substance over superficial appearances because I understood the difference between genuine connection and performed affection. My success had nothing to do with their family dynamics or the advantages they thought money could provide. I had succeeded because I understood what people actually wanted from their celebrations and relationships. While my family focused on impressing strangers and creating perfect social media content, I had learned to listen to what clients needed and deliver experiences that reflected their values rather than my own agenda for recognition or status advancement. The decision about maintaining contact with toxic family members became surprisingly easy once I understood the pattern of their behavior and motivations. They would never celebrate my achievements without trying to claim credit or benefit from my success. They would never acknowledge their previous treatment without attempting to rewrite history to protect their self-image. They would never change because change would require admitting they had been wrong about fundamental issues related to family loyalty and basic human decency. The realization that sometimes the best family is the one you choose for yourself felt liberating rather than devastating. My chosen family consisted of friends who showed up during difficult times and celebrated successes without trying to claim ownership. They included clients who became friends because they valued my work and respected my boundaries. They encompassed a community of people who understood that authentic relationships require mutual respect and genuine care rather than obligation based on shared genetics or family traditions. My worth had never been determined by their opinion or approval, and their recent attempts to reconnect only confirmed that their interest was motivated by self-serving reasons rather than genuine desire for relationship repair. I changed my number and built my own chosen family. Sometimes the most painful lessons teach you the most valuable truths about what really matters in life. That cupcake taught me my worth comes from people who see me, not those who assign me an apron. Some bridges aren't worth building when the other side keeps burning them down behind you. Share your story and hit subscribe. Here's to family you choose. We're building something better than marble mansions and fake smiles. A community where showing up as yourself actually matters. You deserve relationships that celebrate your presence instead of treating it like unpaid labor. Sometimes the family you choose loves you better than the one you're born into. Now I celebrate my next birthday surrounded by friends, not silver trays.